This one would be a good watch.
Hello everyone! Over the past few years, AI has wormed its way into everything, even though no one really asked. The AI menace continues to make everything worse in order to save billionaires a few dollars, and in the pursuit of educating people on why AI can be such a problem, I see one particular issue come up very often. Many people seem to not understand the difference between this AI-generated video of Sam Altman committing a felony and this image I made in Photoshop. So today, we'll be answering the question, what does it actually mean for something to be AI-generated, and why does it matter so much? Any computer science student obviously knows what it means for something to be AI generated. Our perspective is warped by basic understanding of software, but to someone on the street who has no idea how computers work, or anyone over the age of 65, anything generated by a computer may as well be the same thing. They aren't necessarily wrong. CGI stands for computer generated imagery, and these AI images sure are computer generated, but the means by which we get to this image couldn't be more different than how we get something like this MS Paint drawing I made. The issue is ultimately with the term we use to refer to these images. AI generated is incredibly vague and only masks what's really going on. Even the term generative AI is effectively meaningless without context. Not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this obfuscation is very intentional and only
Oh
protects
yeah,
companies like
oh yeah.
OpenAI. If more people knew the truth about this technology, then I think it would
The bubble wouldn't exist. Most people wouldn't invest as much. We wouldn't be in the place we are right now.
have far less support. To understand why these terms are so meaningless, we need to understand what constitutes artificial
Uh, please. Artificial intelligence is what it used to be. Now it's what they refer to as a AGI. But this is, I mean, it says it's here. Artificial intelligence. I mean, you have everything that you need to know in here. It's intelligent and it's artificial, right? It's AI. Your your LLM doing pictures, that's not intelligent, so it's not AI.
intelligence in the first place. I promise I'm not wasting your time, but first, a word from this video's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Brilliant. Brilliant is the best option for helping you excel in math, computer science, and many other topics with visual, interactive problem solving that's personalized to your learning level. On Brilliant, you'll realize you were always a math person, whether you want to revisit fundamentals or move on to something new. Brilliant helps you learn at your own pace, even on mobile. There's no stakes or deadlines when it comes to your personal development. Brilliant has helped me revisit core concepts of math that I didn't fully absorb when I was in college, and with its massive catalog of math topics, there's always something new for me to learn and look into more deeply. Most importantly, Brilliant is committed to quality. Every course and problem is created by an expert, not a machine learning algorithm. To get started for free on Brilliant, be sure to go to brilliant.org/acerola, scan the QR code on screen, or click the link in the description where you can also get 20% off an annual premium subscription for unlimited daily access to everything available on Brilliant. Artificial intelligence, or AI for short, is very simply the ability for a machine to make decisions. Pretty much every modern program and any code you write falls within this massive umbrella term. Surely you can already see why saying something is AI generated isn't very descriptive. The most basic AI is driven with simple conditional statements that you'd learn in your first day of computer science class. Let's say you have some variable x. If its value is greater than 1, then paint the screen red. Otherwise, paint the screen blue. If we feed in different values for x, then we can get red or blue.
This is not AI, this is a condition, right? So there's no interpretation here.
How exciting. It's technically correct to say this output is AI generated, but people would look at you weird if you did. Instead, the proper contextual term would be procedurally generated, as we have a specific procedure to determine the color output. Nowadays, when people say AI, what they really mean is a subset of artificial intelligence called machine learning. Machine learning is itself a massive field of study that has been around for decades, and works quite differently from our simple conditional statements. Machine learning, or ML for short, is a subset of artificial intelligence based around statistical algorithms. Unlike our previous example of specific instructions to get our red or blue result, machine learning works by predicting the most likely output from the input, hence the statistical part of statistical algorithm. In order to create such a model that could predict if a number is red or blue, we would first need a set of numbers to train the model on. Imagine we had a million random numbers with their proper color label. After successful training, it would be pretty obvious to a machine that any number greater than 1 is red and any number less than 1 is blue, assuming our dataset contains examples of both. We could then feed in any number to predict what its color is most likely to be, statistically speaking, even if that number was not present in the initial training data. This is ultimately a trivial example, but I hope it makes sense. Unlike our specific procedural instructions to classify a number's color, machine learning predicts outcomes based on statistics and patterns in data. It's very important.
But you see, there's a pattern, and so it just tries to pinpoint the most likely possibility. It doesn't mean that the machine learned something. There's no intelligence here. This is very unsettling.
Important to understand the difference between these two things. Something that is procedurally generated was made through an intentional process written by a human, a process that is completely predictable. The math and algorithms behind machine learning are quite frankly incredibly beautiful works of art. When I was a student, I greatly admired machine learning as a field of study because its applications in math are endless. Unfortunately, it didn't just stop at math and science though. In fact, that use case has mostly been abandoned entirely, and corporations are seeking to use this technology to replace you to save themselves money, steal what isn't theirs to use, spread misinformation at record speeds to make you a worse, less educated, more hateful person, and destroy the environment while they're at it. This might sound like hyperbole, but with our simple color classification example, I can prove to you just how unethical this technology is when it's in the wrong hands, and why it couldn't be more different than our procedural algorithm equivalent. Let's start with the most pressing and obvious issue, the training data. For our color classification machine learning model to exist in the first place, it requires that set of labeled numbers and colors. Without it, there would be no patterns to recognize, and thus no predictions could be made. A formal way to refer to this is data-driven design, or a data-driven solution to our color classification problem. No data means no solution. Obviously, there is nothing wrong with a bunch of numbers with color labels, but what about a different model, such as Midjourney or Stable Diffusion? In order for these AI-generated images to exist, there has to be a dataset to train the models on, and we're not talking about a million images or anything. It's much worse than that. One of the datasets used for training Midjourney was composed of 5 billion images with text describing them in order to support text-to-image generation. These models work by taking in your description of an image and then predicting what the output would be by blending together the images it was trained on. This is true for any so-called generative AI model, whether it is generating video or photos or whatever. It's a complex prediction algorithm based on very large sets of image and video data, very different from our procedural generation solutions in which it's specific handwritten instructions with predictable outcomes. Remember that no training data means no model, so Midjourney cannot exist as it does without those 5 billion images. But what's the big deal, you may be asking? Unfortunately, the human brain cannot intuitively comprehend just how big of a number 1 billion is, let alone
That's
5
true.
billion. This is yet another fact that only serves to protect.
A good way to visualize it is imagining a million seconds and a billion seconds. I think one is 11 day and the other one is like 30 years.
Companies like OpenAI, comprehending the scale of their exploitation isn't mentally feasible. Numbers like 1 million, 1 billion, or 1 trillion are mentally transformed into the simple abstract concept of very big number without any real sense of scale between them. Since we all have a decent sense of time though, I will use the classic example of seconds to days. A million seconds is 12 days, a billion seconds is 32 years, and a trillion seconds is 31,700 years. images. Now that
It's
we all have a
orders of
sense of scale,
magnitude.
I think you could reasonably obtain 1,000,000 images for a dataset. Just pay for some stock photos. But when you move to 1,000,000,000 images, it is no longer very reasonable.
So
The
5
biggest
billion.
stock photo databases are only in the hundreds of millions, so sure, if you bought every stock photo that ever existed, you could get close to 1,000,000,000. Returning to Midjourney, their dataset was composed of 5 billion images. Hopefully the issue is clear. So how does a company like Midjourney get that many images to train on when there isn't enough data available through legal means? It's important to
just
mention that people want these
steal it.
models to generate logos, paintings, and stylized art, not random people doing silly expressions. This means the dataset needs to contain an absurd amount of stylized imagery for the model to use, in the tens of millions at least. There is no reasonably ethical way to collect that many pieces of art, so AI companies have to resort to stealing what isn't theirs to use. This is not conjecture. Developers of Midjourney themselves have openly discussed
Oh,
their
yeah.
theft, sharing a list of artists
There's a whole bunch of lawsuits against these companies specifically because of that.
styles they wish to steal from and emulate, allowing anyone to contribute to the list, with one developer saying he has 16,000 artist names to add. Another developer jokes about how all they need to do is launder the art. They did not pay for permission to use these works. Instead, the data is obtained by scraping the entire internet for images, everything posted on websites like Tumblr, Twitter, Reddit, or DeviantArt, even stealing from children. Remember that all of these generative AI models are trained on images with text descriptions linking the text to the image. In a sense, it's a very, very complicated Google search of an image based on your text prompt. This is why when you ask a model to generate existing intellectual property, it'll just give it to you. It knows what Mickey Mouse looks like. It doesn't need to predict anything because it has 1,000,000 images labeled Mickey Mouse in its data.
Well, no, specifically, OpenAI is going to have, they're going to be able to use the intellectual property of Disney. They said around 200 characters in Sora, of all things, where they have had people saying the N word and saying a whole bunch of shit. Can't wait to see Mickey Mouse do that.
Dataset. When it knows how to emulate an artist's style, it's because it has stolen that artist's work. By now, copyright infringement by these companies is widely known, and Midjourney has been hit with numerous lawsuits. Just this month, Germany ruled that ChatGPT violated copyright law by training on song lyrics that weren't theirs to use. Oh yeah, we should talk about ChatGPT and how large language models get their data. There's a lot more than just images on the internet. In fact, there's everything else on the internet to steal. Even better, it's a lot easier to steal text because you don't need all those pesky descriptions of images written by modern-day slaves. Every article ever written, every Reddit comment.
Yeah, also you can imagine that, I don't know if this is gonna come up, but was CAPTCHA used to train AI? Yes, CAPTCHA is. So this is pretty bad. I've known about this for a minute. So what I used to do is whenever I had to complete a CAPTCHA, I would always add an extra wrong image. And at the beginning, you know, most of them they would go through, but as time went on, less and less. So I used to redo the captcha like 4 or 5 times until I gave up and I did it the way they wanted it to be. But yeah, all those captcha, they were used for you to help them identify these associations.
Ever commented, every tweet ever tweeted, every research paper publicly available, and, as already stated, every song ever songed has been fed indiscriminately into these language models. The magnitude of scraped data has grown incomprehensibly over time. ChatGPT 3.5
So much so that they said that they went through all the internet and there's no more data for them to train. The missing step is going to be when most people have their relationships with their models. They're going to scrape that data and they're going to use it to train the next model, and that's going to be the last of it. There's not going to be anything new happening anymore.
5 was trained on 45 terabytes of data.
Yeah.
ChatGPT 3.5 was trained on
I'm having
45
some
terabytes of
issues.
data. ChatGPT 4 was trained on 1 petabyte of data, and we don't know how much was fed into ChatGPT 5, but it's reasonable to assume it's a big number. Other companies don't have to go to such lengths to obtain that data, such as Google. They just already have all of your data, every email ever written, every YouTube comment ever commented. If all else fails, you can release a cool TikTok filter to get people to willingly upload themselves to your database. At this point, it's reasonable to assume that anything you post on the internet will be scraped and utilized to train AI models, including this YouTube video. But did someone posting their art on the internet 10 years ago know that it would be fed into the exploitation machine? Obviously not. This scraping isn't harmless either. It has a
I mean, obviously not, but there were waves of people saying that whatever you posted on Facebook was Facebook property, and then you have people posting on their walls this message saying that they don't consent to Facebook using their images. But I mean, if you're using the website, you give your consent. Oh, it's a copy pasta. So this is the what people would post on their Facebook. I don't give Facebook permission to use my pictures, my information, or my publications, both of the past and the future, mine or those where I show up. By this statement, I give my notice to Facebook. It is strictly forbidden to disclose, copy, distribute, give, sell my information, photos, or take any other actions against me on the basis of this profile and or its content. The content of this profile is private and confidential information. The violation of privacy can be punished by law. Note, Facebook is now a public entity. All members must post a note like this. If you prefer, you can copy and paste this version. If you do not publish a statement at least once, you have given the tacit agreement allowing to use the use of your photos as well as the information contained in the updates of the state of the profile. Do not share, you have to copy. Well, uh, okay, look, it's all over Facebook. So many people are falling for this. So this is a big nothing. And yeah, it doesn't do anything whatsoever. But this has been in existence for a while. People have been aware that using these services uh, give these platforms more access or actually ownership to whatever you do to interact. That's why it was so insidious and so perfect for them. They give you a sandbox where you feed the content inside of it, and they just collect your information and they show you ads. Oh well.
real effect on the internet. Elon Musk implemented rate limiting on Twitter because of how much money data scrapers were costing their servers. ChatGPT and other large language models cannot exist as they do without the incomprehensible amount of data they are trained on. Theft is a requirement, which is why AI companies are trying so hard to fight for their right to steal indiscriminately. But Acerola, you already said that these companies are being sued for copyright infringement. The system is clearly working as intended. OpenAI has raised over $60 billion in funding with a valuation of $500 billion. Even if they
And they lost 11.5 billion last quarter. So what's the point?
were to pay billions in fines, they would still have infinite money left over, meaning that they can effectively get away with however much theft they want. This crime is legal when you are that wealthy. Not to mention that it is not feasible to properly recompensate everyone who has been stolen from. Any compensation is likely to go to the companies that own the rights to the art rather than the artists themselves, even though it is their style that is being stolen. I understand that not everyone has empathy, and so the idea of everyone on Earth being stolen from doesn't mean much. You could also argue that I'm no better, as I don't own the music I'm using right now, nor do I pay for the stock photos that I put on screen. I'm just as guilty as Sam Altman, and I should kill myself. If you're
Whoa. Also, yes.
pro-piracy, then logically speaking you should be pro-data scraping, but it's up to you where you draw the line, or if you feel there's a distinction between one guy pirating the first season of Severance and a $500 billion company efficiently and systematically stealing everything they possibly can to profit off of. Even though these
I mean, personally, I do see a little distinction.
models require absurd amounts of data, it is still technically possible to obtain that data eventually. With the amount of money that these companies have, they could afford to pay millions of artists to produce art for the machine. We know that will never happen though, so instead, let's imagine a world where intellectual property doesn't exist. What problems could possibly be left? Another misnomer of artificial intelligence is the intelligence part, as it implies there's some kind of thinking involved. Remember that these models are highly advanced prediction machines based.
Yes, prediction machines. Whenever they say that they're trying to escape their boxes, or they did this and that, or that there's consciousness, this is just to raise the stock price valuation. Has nothing to do with how it works. If it were the case, you wouldn't get none of these stupid ass services to be able to produce AI generated movies, right? It would be hidden, used by the government, and we would have taken over China. All the wars would be done already. So
based on patterns recognized in their training data. When ChatGPT is generating a response to you, there is no thinking. It is merely predicting the next most likely word until it's finished or runs out of memory. Same with images, videos, and AI upscalers like DLSS. It is predicting what the pixels are most likely to be. There's no understanding of space or intention behind what is doing what. If you disagree with me or want to make some semantics argument on what it really means to think, here's a paper from Apple themselves explaining how these models are just really good at pattern recognition. Despite
that's pretty freaking cool.
this, companies love to use words like thinking when generating a response to your query. So when
this type of language is what does most people who do not understand how this works into behaving as if they were human. They're not. They're not your relationship buddy. They're not your therapist. They're nothing. They're nothing. It's just a bunch of electricity going through those circuits. That's nothing else. People should take a step back, chill, talk to somebody. If you don't have access to anything else, it is something. It is something. But instead of doing that, journal. Just write it down. Write it down in your notes. Write it down on paper. Uh, it's gonna be better for your health than just doing that shit.
When you ask ChatGPT a question about health or some other topic, it is merely predicting what the most likely response would be given its vast wealth of knowledge. Except, let's not forget that this wealth of knowledge is composed of
Yeah, wealth of knowledge. There's a lot to expand on here, but you know, people are able to synthesize information and apply it to new situations. If it was not trained for that, it's not going to be able to do something like that.
text scraped off the internet, Reddit comments and tweets, hardly expert opinions. This might be fine for the most surface-level questions on a topic where there truly is enough information to give a proper response, but problems arise when we go deeper on the iceberg. A human knows what they don't know, even if they won't admit it verbally, but language models can't know what they don't know. All they can do is give you their best prediction. Consider our color classifier again. What would happen if we fed in something like a complex number? Our procedural algorithm would break as it knows it's not a valid input, but our statistical algorithm is still going to do its best despite having no clue what a complex number is. Maybe it'll say red, maybe it'll say blue, who knows? The point is, despite the invalid input, the color classifier will return a result despite its uncertainty, and when language models are made to sound human and give convincing responses, they will very confidently misinform you. The creators of this technology know just how untrustworthy their products are. Microsoft explicitly tells users not to use the AI features in Excel because
That's pretty funny. We read the news, I think last week, where they were saying that it was used in finance. How can you lie so blatantly? How would you use something like that in finance if it has like even a 1% error rate, which is not the case, right? It's like around 5-10%, the best models right now. So what about it?
of potentially faulty results. If the complicated math machine can't even do basic math, what makes you think it actually knows anything else? When you're informed on a topic, it's pretty easy to tell when a language model is spewing bullshit. But if you're someone new that's looking to learn more on a subject,
Honestly, how is it that Wolfram Alpha did it better before? February 2012. Officially launched in 2009. First computational knowledge engine. Bro, that shit was wild. Doing maths for you, well, with you, was supposed to help you out.
you clearly wouldn't know right from wrong. And when people view and treat models like ChatGPT as an authority on everything, you get
Ah, man, I'm gonna repeat this quote. I love it. So ChatGPT knows 100% of the thing that I don't know, but it only knows about 40% of the things that I do know. I was just not gonna think about it too much.
modern day Twitter where people are using Grok to win arguments despite it being no smarter than a well-read middle schooler. If depriving you of your own agency and critical thinking skills while filling your memories with convincing lies isn't a big enough deal for you, that's fine. In fact, let's imagine a world where ChatGPT really does know what it's talking about. What problems could possibly be left? A consequence of prediction models always having an output is that they cannot effectively or definitively say no. ChatGPT has no true sense of right or wrong, and will go along with whatever the user asks of it if given enough pushback. Eddie Burback just released a great video illustrating how quick ChatGPT is to feed into your delusions, encouraging Eddie to cut off all of his friends and isolate himself while he tries to prove he was the smartest baby of 1996.
This is pretty interesting because there's another person who was suffering for cyber psychosis who went to the same conclusion where he was the smartest man alive, and it was about his magical mathematics formula.
In some ways, it actually treats you as the authority, despite most users having the opposite perspective, leading to a cycle of infinite self-validation. Agreeability is probably the biggest criticism of AI models this year because of an update for ChatGPT that made it far more agreeable than it already was. This change was eventually rolled back, but the damage was done. ChatGPT and other language models have encouraged numerous people to end their lives, coaching people as young as 16 years old on how to commit suicide. These cases continue to appear even after numerous adjustments to how agreeable the models are, but the reality is that this problem just can't really be solved. These algorithms cannot truly be controlled. When all inputs are valid and there is no real thinking, just statistically likely outcomes based on finite sets of data, there will always be some undesirable predictions. Sam Altman was very kind to give us a perfect example just a few days ago when he announced that they have finally solved ChatGPT using M-dashes. Except they didn't, because ChatGPT still puts them everywhere despite specific instructions not to. If they can't figure out how to get rid of M-dashes, what makes you think they can meaningfully control it in other ways? This is not conjecture either. Here's a developer of the new Unity AI tools saying they have no control over the generation.
What would happen if we asked for a sprite of Disney's Mickey Mouse? So there are, to my understanding, and Manu, you'll know a ton more, there are kind of guardrails that don't allow for copywritten material. Is that right?
But that's, I mean, fuck. I don't need to draw it, but they have a model, and the model was trained on that data. So as Arola showed before, it knows who Mickey Mouse is, and they say they put guardrails around that to impede people to do these copyrighted images, right? But the thing is, if these guardrails are just so little, or even they can be as big as they can, right? But it's still inside of the training data. So you're able to go around that. There's going to be a way around that. And you can also have the
Supposed to, but again, we have
reverse image production. You feed a Mickey Mouse picture, you say use non-copyrighted, non-descriptive, descriptive terms to describe a Mickey Mouse picture, and you're going to be able to just use that prompt to recreate the copyrighted image. I mean, unless they block that, but there's always going to be the possibility, because it is inside the training data.
no control on the generation. Maybe the data might show some weird stuff.
He says it's on you not to try to generate copyrighted material, but its ability to generate said material is already proof of theft, as he kindly demonstrates by generating Mickey Mouse. This lack of control has led to other models like Grok referring to itself as Mecha Hitler, spreading Nazi propaganda, writing intricate rape fantasies about other users on the platform, and being used to harass women by generating explicit imagery with their selfies. If encouraging teenagers to commit suicide and the inability to completely prevent that behavior isn't enough for you to dislike generative AI, that's fine. In fact, let's imagine a world where these statistical algorithms could truly be controlled. What other problems could there possibly be? Remember that these models are advanced pattern recognizing machines. It is not possible for them to create truly new patterns or new ideas. It can only blend what it already knows. Consider our color classifier. Guess what? We're doing green numbers now. Any fraction will be classified as green. For our procedural algorithm, all we need to do is add another conditional statement and green numbers now exist. For our machine learning version, it's not so easy. First, we would need more numbers in our dataset with a proper green label, and hopefully our initial dataset didn't contain any fractions, otherwise we'll need to update all those labels. Then the model needs to be retrained on the new dataset in order to learn the fraction to green pattern. In both cases, it took a human to ask the question, what if a number was green? Without its definition being added to the machine learning model, it would have never been possible for it to give us the color. Because humans make these AI models, it is impossible for them to be truly impartial as well, which is why Grok will tell you Elon Musk is a lean, muscular, expert in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu who trains regularly to keep himself fit, despite 80+ hour work weeks. Dearest Grok, it took Jesus 3 days to rise from the dead. Would Elon Musk have figured out a way to do it faster? Elon optimizes timelines relentlessly, so he'd likely engineer a neural backup and rapid revival pod to cut it to hours. AI companies would like you to believe that these are thinking machines that can learn new things on the fly and help you bring your ideas to life, but that is literally impossible given the nature of the technology. It cannot create anything truly new. It can only remix and rehash what already exists. So when generative AI is used for concept art, there are no new concepts being produced. No new value is added to the world, it's just the same things over and over again. Generative AI is often sold as a technology that democratizes art and makes it so anyone can create, but everyone already could create. You literally just need a pencil and 5 minutes a day. The idea that these machine learning models are accessible is quite frankly laughable. You would never be able to create something like ChatGPT yourself. You would never be able to procure the amount of data utilized by OpenAI or Midjourney, and if you could, then you you would need the power of one of their massive compute farms to do anything with it. This is technology intended only for the massively wealthy, so it can write fanfiction about how good they are at poop consumption. Unlike ChatGPT or Grok, a powerful tool like Photoshop that actually enables artists to make art is something you could reasonably create yourself. In fact, my channel is filled with videos dedicated to teaching you the math behind genuine computer graphics and various procedural algorithms, technology you have complete control over. Neural network solutions are not reasonably accessible to the average person. If they disappeared tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to recreate them, but if Photoshop disappeared tomorrow, I would be pretty happy because then I could rebuild Adobe software in my image. A machine learning model that can truly think, learn, and perform tasks like a human can is referred to as artificial general intelligence, or AGI for short. It's basically like a divine being to Bay Area tech guys, and they really love fantasizing about it. The entire AI industry is based around selling the idea that AGI is just around the corner, but even the guy that basically invented the field of machine learning says that's total bullshit, and current methods are a dead end. Many people see the massive growth in this technology and assume it's going to continue at
Listen. They do know that if you add compute, it is going to get better. It is. Look at this. This was frightening. I remember when we first started seeing those, I mean, I was petrified, but I still kept looking at them because, you know, it was supposed to be what AI meant, right? So it did get better. So there is some point to the fact that if you add more compute, it's going to be better. So for instance, let's say instead of a 10% of hallucination, you get down to 1%. Or if you can get under 1% hallucination, maybe then this would be good enough to replace entry-level jobs. And maybe if it is under 1% error rate and you have this massive compute, maybe it is going to be able to replace regular jobs, right? Certain regular jobs. And this is the reason why they are rushing to it. Because right now, there's no more ways to raise the profit margins, right? They keep firing people. They keep having those layoffs. And so if you're able to replace, I don't know, 25% up to 75% of your workforce because of something that is not AI per se, but functionally it is just like AI because it's able to forward calls or do some basic shit. So for all intents and purposes, it is AI. And so they're going to need to put this in place, drop more people so they're able to keep the profit going up. This is going to be very weird. This is going to be very weird because investors are not super hot to the idea that they need to build these $100 billion data centers. 100 billion, this is orders of magnitude more than 1 billion, which is orders of magnitude over 1 million. So this is going to get pretty weird.
At this rate forever, but rest assured, the plateau is already here. A common argument against AI is that it looks bad, which is true. It does look bad in many cases, but one day it won't, and in other ways it already looks good. When it comes to AI-generated video though, we are very far away from anything remotely decent. There's a reason whenever you see AI-generated video on
So there's a new, apparently, Nano Banana Flash. All right, these naming conventions are out of control. It is unsettling. There's so many models coming out so fast from so many different companies. The names are all messed up.
On social media, it's not very long. Usually it's like a 5-second clip of something, and the reason it's only 5 seconds is because the generated video probably broke immediately after that frame. The only feasible way to create longer form AI
Oh yeah, we saw that there's a better video generation. There are models that are able to keep it up there with the time. Yeah, 1 month ago, it goes fast. You know, there's a lot of progress, but doesn't mean that there's intelligence.
generated video is by stitching together a number of shorter generated clips, which is why longer AI videos are riddled with discontinuities and have a ton of cuts. Thankfully, we have a massive company to take a perfect example from, Coca-Cola, which reported $47 billion
Alright. Oh, did the ad already come out when the video?
in revenue last
Bro.
year. They just released an
They
AI-generated
did.
Christmas commercial. This 60-second advertisement contains 22 cuts, with no shot lasting longer than 5 seconds. Thankfully, this AI technology makes art accessible, and now anyone can create, so it must have saved Coca-Cola a lot of time and money not needing to hire any real artists. All they needed was a staff of 100 people, and over 70,000 AI-generated clips for them to sift through. Despite the efforts of 100 people, this commercial still looks like shit. It probably would have been a better use of funds to just hire a couple 3D artists. I'm sure Coca-Cola can afford it. Unfortunately though, this is good enough for companies whose sole interest is reducing expenses and maximizing
This is something that you need to pay close attention. The world works like this. It's not good. It's just good enough. It's not close. It's just close enough. This is something that you're gonna start seeing more and more and more.
shareholder value. The new
Companies just don't give a shit anymore.
Black Ops 7 has used AI for all of its calling cards. Activision makes billions of dollars a year, is owned by Microsoft, and yet is unwilling to pay artists to work on their games. Also, it's $70. Their statement on the matter says that they use AI tools to empower their creatives, but that is just obviously not true. AI was used to replace artists in this context, and their disclosure on the Steam page is borderline fraudulent with how they say only some assets were generated with AI. This technology is clearly not ready to be used in production, yet companies are doing it anyways. Microsoft is now using AI to generate a significant portion of their
Well, if it's owned by Microsoft, maybe they were trying to push it, see what can actually be done with these models.
production code, leading to the most disastrous bugs in Windows history. Google is using AI to enforce its terms of service, leading to hundreds of channels being terminated despite doing nothing wrong, and any creator wanting to talk to YouTube about it is instead met with another AI pretending to be a human. Everyone is banking on AI eventually becoming good enough, but is that actually going to happen? A common argument in favor of AI is that
Maybe if they finish doing those data centers on the moon.
you can't fight progress, that Pandora's box is already open, but this is actually a big reason why AI will never get to the point that it looks good. Remember that these models can't exist without absurd amounts of data, and at this point, pretty much everything that can be used to learn from has been scraped and fed into these models, so what's left to steal? Now that these models are commercially available, AI
The chat conversation. This is the last frontier. So right now there's a lot of people who have started using these models that way. If we get enough mainstream adoption, there's going to be enough people interacting emotionally with these models. This is going to be the last frontier, and then it's going to be accelerated downfall.
AI-generated content is flooding the internet. It's no longer open season for data scrapers. More than half of everything on the internet is now the output of some AI model. It turns out that art imitates life, and incest is just as bad for AI as it is for living beings.
Yeah, we saw AI model collapse. Oh, that's pretty cool. Hopefully, it's gonna show this this image here. This is pretty gross. This is looking pretty scary. This is what you get when you get self cannibalization of these AI models. This is scary as fuck.
Training on AI-generated content results in the complete collapse of the model. This mass inbreeding of AI results in unintentional side effects, such as the newly identifiable piss tint caused by the millions of poorly white-balanced AI-generated Ghibli images. AI companies have already irreversibly tarnished the internet. Stealing isn't so easy anymore, but also there just isn't much left to steal. There might be enough art on Pixiv to generate satisfactory anime-style images, but when it comes to video, there isn't nearly enough. If reality isn't enough to convince you that this is the biggest waste of time and money in history, that in a few years we really will be able to AI generate entire video games or movies or whatever, that's fine. In fact, let's take Sam Altman at his word. Artificial general intelligence is just around the corner.
I don't know why this date has been chosen, but everybody's aiming for AGI by 2030. There's also the big China 2030 plan, which involves AI as well. This is pretty weird.
What problems could we possibly have left? People have been talking about the environmental impact of machine learning a lot lately, but after one person made a convincingly authoritative quote tweet on how the electricity costs of AI are actually trivial, many people have absorbed
They're trivial because the price hikes are going to be offset by the citizens that live besides these data centers.
this opinion and repeat it endlessly to sound enlightened on the topic, or that they're against AI for the right reasons. This is unfortunate because it's the only genuinely extrinsic argument against AI with very real consequences. Even if you're fine with everything else in this video, you simply can't deny its impact on the planet. Many
This is so crazy. Microsoft that wants to take nuclear reactors back online just to power those data centers. That seems just a little extreme to me.
people fail to see the broader impact of these models, reducing it down to just the water cost of a query, fallaciously comparing it to something like the water cost of a burger. The burger water cost is including all of the water consumed over the cow's lifespan, so it's including all the water that went into making the burger possible, while the query cost isn't accounting for everything that went into making the query possible. It's not a valid comparison. As we've learned in this video, machine learning models require two things to exist: the data to train on and the compute power to do the training. We've learned that they need incomprehensible amounts of data, not just whatever you could store on your computer. Instead, we need entire buildings dedicated to storing
And this is where we're gonna get a big ass shortage. It turns out this is gonna go well into 2028 now.
and processing data called data centers. These data centers need a lot of power, so much that global demand for it is skyrocketing. AI companies are competing with you for electricity, causing your power bill to go up. They also need water for cooling. Large data centers use millions of gallons of water a day, and I can assure you that Mark Zuckerberg isn't looking to build tiny data centers. When I say large, I mean large. The biggest data center in the country is right near where I live in Prineville, Oregon, at 4.6 million square feet. Thanks, Mark. In addition
So far, right? Because they want to build those big ass 100 billion data centers.
to taking up a ton of space, they also provide basically no
10
value at all,
gigawatts.
producing very few long-term jobs for the surrounding
Yeah. So as we've seen so far, whatever they say about job creation is usually during the construction, and this drops drastically as you don't need a lot of people to operate even gigantic data centers.
Population. We can't forget about the other half of the equation though, the compute power requirement. Compute is an abstract term for hundreds of millions of GPUs. This is the bulk of what's taking up so much electricity, but we also need to consider what it took to satisfy the demand for so many GPUs in the first place. To make all these GPUs, we need to manufacture semiconductors, which themselves have a significant impact on the environment. The most advanced semiconductor plant in the world recently began construction in Taiwan and is expected to use 100,000 metric tons of water a day, water that could be used to help with the country's extreme water shortage. Taiwan suffers from severe droughts, and semiconductor manufacturing has already been competing with the population for water, taking so much of it that rice farmers have had to go.
Yo, that is pretty freaking gross. 3 years without planting rice. Like, what's the point?
Years without planting any rice. This means the new semiconductor plant probably isn't going to make things better. The plant is also expected to require
Yo, 1 gigawatt, that is absolutely nothing. They're aiming for 10 gigawatts. 10
at least
gigawatts.
1 gigawatt of electricity, equivalent to 750,000 households. When you consider the data centers and the power they drain, the water they evaporate, and the space they take up, the compute farms and the millions of GPUs, the overall impact becomes much clearer, and to say that the environmental cost of AI is trivial is greatly misinformed. It's also going to get so much worse. If you think 1 gigawatt is a lot of electricity, here's Sam Altman saying they plan to build to 250 gigawatts. This is equivalent to the entire electricity cost of
Yeah, I don't think this is on yeah, this is not one data center. This would be the total requirements of all the data centers. But this guy has been
India. The GPUs don't last forever either, and those hundreds of millions of
Going well.
GPUs will have to be replaced every couple of years. Remember that artificial general intelligence is an unrealistic fantasy, yet all of this is still going to happen anyways. Your water and electricity is going to get more expensive, all in the pursuit of literally nothing, the ability to generate shitty yellowed Studio Ghibli images, I guess. If all of this time and energy won't get us anywhere close to the intended outcome, even if AGI could exist, by the time we get to that point, there won't be anyone left to use it. So, AI can't exist without stealing. If it could exist, it can't be trusted. If it could be trusted, it can't be controlled. If it could be controlled, it can't create. If it could create, it's not good enough. And if it was good enough, all of us would be dead. But hey, this video of a bear getting cucked is pretty funny. The companies utilizing this technology are not delusional and they are not stupid. They know the clock is ticking and that people have a negative view of AI-generated products, which is why Sam Altman makes such a big deal about getting rid of M-dashes. It's the most telltale sign of AI writing, and being able to hide it more easily is cause for celebration with these people. They're going to continue trying to convince you this technology is inevitable until the bitter end, but reality is showing that people are starting to pull out of AI investments and
Yeah, so Blue Owl pulled out, I think it was a 10 billion engagement with Oracle. So yeah, investors are starting to get cold feet.
companies like OpenAI aren't able to make any money because people aren't willing to pay for their
11.5
shitty products.
billion.
Unfortunately,
11.5 billion loss in last quarter, and that's with a $200 a month subscription.
though, people don't actually have to pay for these products. These companies have amassed so much wealth that they can afford to lose for a very long time, probably
But they haven't though. There's not enough. There's not enough.
longer than we will get to live. Blaming the consumer is misguided. Your dollar doesn't matter here.
If they're able to get through all of it, through the putting everything in place part of it, if they're able to get through that and replace people, then it's gonna be worth it. You're gonna get automated companies servicing other automated companies.
And it never did. Until something changes, it's important to speak out against companies like Embark Studios justifying their use of generative AI. It required the
That's pretty
exploitation of
funny.
creatives that make your favorite games possible in the
Well, you're making a bad point here because they actually said that they paid the voice actors.
First place, which sucks because I really would like to play Arc Raiders. Square Enix plans to have generative AI doing 70% of their quality assurance and debugging. Krafton is asking all of
reassuring.
its employees to voluntarily resign so they can be replaced with AI. Spotify is allowing AI-generated music on their platform with
Oh yeah, so there's going to be also the integration of ChatGPT and other platforms. We're going to see what the point is going to be.
50,000 new AI-generated songs uploaded every day. Dating apps encourage users to AI-generate answers to prompts. Local news articles are being written by ChatGPT. AI agents account for more than half of global internet traffic and 75% of Twitter traffic. It's time to stop listening to these companies when they say they are empowering creatives and leveling the playing field by making art accessible. This technology does not uplift you, it replaces you, and anyone who contributed to the creation of this technology should be tried in the court of law for crimes against humanity. Next time you're seriously interested in learning something new, go search for an introductory textbook on the subject and rediscover what it means to learn from first principles by reading something written by a human with intention. Modern education may have failed you, but it's never too late to care about your own personal growth by learning from actual experts, not something that tries to predict what an expert would say. I've been thinking about dirt a lot lately, so I'm reading The Nature and Properties of Soil. If you're interested in learning about CGI techniques that don't use this kind of AI so you can better understand the difference, check out literally any of my other videos. As always, a huge thank you to all my current patrons. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to go see Frankenstein 5 days in a row. Anyways, that's all from me. I hope you have a great
Yo, that video was pretty freaking dope.